Hello students, welcome back to my channel. Let us continue learning the chapter Constructors and Destructors. In today's session, we will be completely covering all about copy constructors. Let us just recall what all things we have learned under this chapter already. First, we had seen what is a constructor, the definition and all those things. After that, we were learning the types of constructor, under which we have seen that there are three types of constructor: default, parameterized, and the third one is a copy constructor. In the previous sessions, we have already seen what is the meaning of default constructor and parameterized constructor. Today, let us go ahead and learn what is a copy constructor. So a copy constructor is also a parameterized constructor using which one object can be copied into another. So this is used in order to copy the object values, remember, okay, wherein which in the default what we were doing is as soon as an object is getting created, a default constructor used to get invoked. A parameterized constructor used to get invoked by three methods that we have seen, that is your explicit call, implicit call, and using the equal to method. Now why this copy constructor is used? It is you basically used in order to copy the object values from one object to another. So let us see what are the situations where we can use the copy constructors. The very first one is to initialize an object with the values of already existing objects. Of course, when we say copying object from one object to another means that there is an already existing object, for example obj, and I'm creating a new object, for example obj2. Now instead of calling a constructor, any other constructor, and making the member data of this data members of this object initializing once again, what we can do is directly we can copy it to this. So that is done using our copy constructor. Second situation where we can use a copy constructor is when objects must be returned as function value. So whenever a return type, or when we are returning after the calculation, if at all I am returning an object, in such case also a copy constructor is very useful. The third situation is to state object as by value. If at all you want to send object as a value, as a parameter of any function, whenever you are sending an object as a parameter, in such situation also we will be using our copy constructor. So we are going to see them in detail, as in we are going to discuss where all we are going to use the copy constructor one by one. I hope this much is clear. Let us see the syntax of a copy constructor. So we have a class name, that is how we declare using the scope resolution operator. This is my constructor name, and see here I am passing a object as parameter. So when I say class name ampersand pointer, this is a pointer variable. We will be learning about this in detail in the coming sessions. So as of now, understand that pointer variable is a variable which always holds the address of another variable. So whenever we are using a pointer variable, we are nothing but directly accessing that particular variable in the memory. We are directly doing the operation on it in the memory, and we are not working on the copy of it. Okay, so here I am creating a object, and that address itself I am passing, that is I am passing the directly the link to that particular object. So this is the syntax when we are using a scope resolution operator. So this is an example. So in this case, of course, you will know that the class X would have declared something like this, and under that class X I am declaring my copy constructor, right? So the syntax is important, students. Next, let us see the one by one cases how we are going to invoke the copy constructor. That is, how are we going to call the copy constructor? Remember that there is no separate call which we will make like how we used to do for a parameterized constructor. We know that for a default constructor, example, if I have a class X declare something like this in the main, even for the default constructor I need not call it. All I have to do is say class X and create an object x1, and automatically this action would invoke the default constructor. Wherein which when it comes to the parameterized, it was necessary to mention the different calls or the parameters in order to invoke the parameterized constructor. Now in the copy constructor, in case of copy constructor, these are the following 5 cases where we can invoke them, and in the first case how we cannot invoke. Okay, so a copy constructor is not invoked explicitly. Okay, this explicit method, I hope you remember that we had used in the parameterized constructor. Now we cannot use this method in order to call the copy constructor. Then how we can call the copy constructor? So here is the answer. A copy constructor is invoked automatically when a new object is created and equated. This is important. Not just a new object is created. Now only when the new object is created, which one gets invoked? Default constructor. But in our copy constructor case, we have to create a new object and we have to equate it to already existing object in the declaration statement itself. Only then a copy constructor gets called. Okay, so what is happening here? Let us, in this also the class name is X. We have some class like this. Okay, and I'm creating an object A1 in the name of X, and after that I'm creating another object called as A2, and I'm saying it is equal to the previously existing object. Now in this case we would have called, for example, a default constructor when we would have initialized the data members. Now the same values are going to be initialized to this. Now you might ask, then what is the need of a copy constructor? I might as well use a default constructor. Yes, it is true. But if you are using a default constructor for all the objects, then what happens? The same value gets initialized for all of them. But here we can choose, for example, if I want A2 to have this value or not. Next time when I want, I might not equate it. I might call another parameterized constructor. Right? I hope this is clear. So first thing is it cannot be invoked explicitly, and another second method is we can create object and it equate it to the already existing object. The third type is when an object is declared, an existing object is passed as a parameter. This we have seen, isn't it? Already in the first page we saw that when a object is passed as a parameter also, a copy constructor gets invoked. So see here, I'm creating an object here saying A1 and I'm passing 100 and 200. So what is the method? This one, this is nothing but a parameterized constructor. So I have created a parameterized constructor, or I have initialized the data members of A1, object A1 as 100 and 200. Now I am passing this A1 as a parameter in my second object. Okay, there can be, what is the reason? There can be any reason, but I am passing directly the object itself. So when I do this action, a copy constructor gets invoked. Remember. Okay, so another method is whenever I am passing a object as a parameter, a copy constructor gets invoked. This is the fourth method where if at all I am passing a object as a function parameter. Okay, that can be another case, not just the constructor or object parameter of an object. If at all a function is passed by value, that is if you're passing a value of an object, so in this case test is a function and a is an object I've created and I'm passing a as a parameter. In this case also a copy constructor gets invoked. Remember, so these are the two different cases where we are using object as a parameter. So the last method is here I am returning, or function is returning a object as a value. Okay, a copy constructor is invoked when object returns a value, or in another way, if I am rewriting it, returns a value object as a value. Returning value is an object of a particular function. For example, see here I have a class here whose name is measure. I have these, that is inches and feet as a variable, and I have a function whose name is sum. Now this particular sum, its return type is measure. Okay, notice this, the return type of this is measure, not void, not int, not float, but measure. And what is this measure? Measure is again a class name, which means this particular function is returning a object as a value. Okay, and the parameter which it is taking is also of type object. And how did I get to know? Because it is declared that the return type of this function as well as the parameters of this function are of type class. Right, now let us see the function. So this the basically the functioning of this is nothing but it is going to calculate how much feet are there in the given input. That is, if at all I give 24 as an input, it will, we know that 12 inches is equals to 1 feet, isn't it? So in 24 we have 2 feet and we are left with 0 inches. Suppose if I give 25 as the input, then I have 2 feet and 1 inch. This should be the calculation. So that is a basically calculation. Now let us focus on what is the copy constructor here. So here I am declaring again outside the class using the scope resolution operator the same sum function, and after that I am performing the calculation. The important thing for you to notice here is the return. So here I am returning an object. Okay, so here I am returning feet and inches, which is nothing but the data members of this particular object, and I am returning the value which is of type measure, again which is nothing but my object. Okay, so this is a very important thing. So a copy constructor gets invoked wherever we are calling or returning a function, or a function returns a value which is of type object. I hope these different methods are clear. Let us just quickly recall what are the different types of invoking or different methods we can invoke a copy constructor. There are basically 4 and one how we cannot. So first thing is, a copy constructor is not invoked explicitly. Second thing is, a copy constructor is invoked when we are creating an object and equating it to an already existing object. Third method is when we are passing an object as a parameter of a object, newly created object. Fourth thing is when we are passing a object as a function, parameter of a function, then also a copy constructor is going to get invoked. Fifth one is when a copy constructor is invoked when a function returns the value which is of type object. Right, I hope this is clear. This might come in the examination. At that time, depending on the marks, you will have to explain with the example, students. If it is for more mark, for example, if it is for 5 marks, you will have to mention all the 5 points and explain with the example. And if it is asked for 2 marks, you just need to give the headings and explain. That is more than sufficient. Right, okay, let us see a simple program, sample program, and let us see how a copy constructor is going to work over here. So I have a class whose name is copy. I have an integer variable. Now this is my constructor where I am initializing the value, and also I have a member function where I am calculating the factorial. I hope you know that what is a factorial. For example, factorial of 3 is nothing but 3 into 2 into 1. So this is how I'm going to calculate the factorial. Same thing we are going to do over here for any given input by the input, whatever input we are giving according to the user, accordingly we are going to perform the calculation here, that we will see later. Let us come to the void main. So here I'm saying enter a number and I'm taking a value from the keyboard, that is user is entering some value. Now here I am calling a object or creating an object of copy. Don't get confused, this copy is the name of my this is the name of the class. Okay, this is not a function, this is the name of a class. So when I am writing here, I am creating an object called as obj and I am passing the value. So this is a parameterized constructor. I am passing some value, and under obj variable is going to get initialized. In this case, if I have entered 5, variable is going to get initialized to 5. In the next step, see carefully what is happening. I am saying copy cpy, which means I'm creating another object which is whose name is cpy, and I'm saying it is equal to obj. Now obj is nothing but the just now whatever we created, already existing object. So when I say it is equal to obj, Again, under copy also there is going to be a variable, and that is also going to get initialized automatically to 5. We are nothing but copying the whatever the values obj has into cpy. Okay, now I'm saying before copying obj dot calculate. So what happens? Obj dot calculate will get calculated over here. So what does obj has? So int fact is going to be 1. Let us perform this calculation, and I'm saying for I is equals to 1 is less than or equal to variable. In the case of obj it is 5. If 1 is less than or equal to 5, I plus plus, and fact is equal to fact into 1, that is 1 is equal to 1 into 1. So first case it is going to be 1. Then again I'm going to increase the value to 2. Now it is going to be 1 is equal to 1 into 2, which is again of course going to be 2. After that it is going to be 3. Now 2 is equals to 2 into 3, which is going to be 6. Okay, now y value is going to become 4, and I also simultaneously comparing this. Of course 4 is less than or equal to 5, so it is going to be true. So 6 is equals to 6 into next value is 4, so it is going to be 24. Okay, so now again it is going to become 5. This is still true, so I am going to calculate 24 into 5, which is 120. Okay, now I value is going to become 6, but this is going to become false. This particular condition is not satisfying, hence we are going to stop at 120. Now the value in fact is 120, hence 120 is going to get printed. I hope this is clear. So mainly we are focusing on copy constructor here. By now you should be able to execute or run this program and write and run something like this and understand how it works. Okay, so when I say obj.cout obj.calculate, 120 is going to get printed. Next, what I'm saying, after copying, copy.calculate, cpy.calculate. So what is going to happen when I say cpy.calculate? Again I'm going to call the same calculate function, and since our variable value is 5, the same set of execution is going to get executed, and in this case also I am going to get the value 120. So that is why my output here, as you all can see, this is my output. This is I'm entering 5, and for both the cases, though I have not mentioned n anywhere when I'm creating cpy, directly it has copied the value from obj, and we are getting the same answer for both of them, right? So I hope this concept of copy constructor is clear to you all. So that's all in today's session, students. Hope these videos are helping you all in your studies. So keep learning. Thank you for watching.